Hey guys, it's 𝗢𝗙𝗙 from eToro, and today I'm going to be talking about why David Zaslav, the CEO of Warner Bros. Discovery, is the highest paid CEO in America. First, I should say that I am an investor in Warner Bros. Discovery and have been for 3 years, and when I discovered that one of the companies that I own has the highest paid CEO in America, my first reaction was, this is bad. Leftists and liberals love to scream about the excessive pay of CEOs. However, my concern was literally just as a shareholder, whether it was worth us spending $50 million annually on one person. However, I think what helps make sense of this number is not who we paid, but what we paid that person to do. And I should say that the reason that we know about this figure is big American public companies are forced to publish their CEO and top chief executive salaries in their Def 14A filings on the SEC. When I looked at the filing for Warner Bros. Discovery, it laid out in exact terms what shareholders had paid David Zaslav to do in 2023. David Zaslav's base salary in 2023 was $3 million. I believe that this is annual, however, it does say term through to December 31st, 2027, so correct me if this is the base salary for this entire period, but I believe that's his annual base salary. He has a target cash bonus of $22 million. He has equity targeting contract of $12 million. And then he has extra PRSUs, which is restricted stock. And so it doesn't specify exactly what he could be getting there. And that is it. So guys, while I was doing research for this video, I went back to some of the news articles stating that David Zaslav was the most overpaid CEO. I typically don't like reading too many news articles while I'm doing my research because I prefer to get the information from the source and come to my own opinions. But I went to these news articles and some of them were stating that his salary was $250 million. So as I'm going to be saying in the remainder of this video, his salary is $37 million to $50 million. And so I was wondering, where are they getting this figure from that he is earning $250 million in 2021 or 2022, I believe. And what I found out was that shareholders, in order to align David Zaslav's needs with their needs, they awarded him the ability to earn stock based on the share price reaching certain levels. And so the minimum, I believe, is $27, and if he'll get the maximum payout if it reaches $43. And so given that the share price is currently at $8, David Zaslav will not have received any of this compensation yet, and I don't believe it's ever reached $27. So David Zaslav has not received any of this compensation. However, the fact that he could be awarded this money, this contract stating that he could be awarded this money if it reaches up to $43, they have used something called the Black-Scholes method in order to determine that the value of this contract is worth $190 million, even though currently David Zaslav has not received a penny from this contract. So let me just read exactly what I found in last year's 14A filing, or the 14A filing from which these news articles are quoting this. The Zaslav 2021 employment agreement also provided for the grant of non-qualified stock options, which were valued at $190 million using the Black-Scholes option pricing model. To be honest, I'm going to leave the remainder of the video as it is and ignore this $190 million payment because 1, technically David Zaslav hasn't received any of it yet, and 2, it's a one-off payment to make sure that the new CEO of Warner Bros. Discovery's make sure that their goals are aligned with the goals of the shareholders. And it's not me saying that, it's the board of directors in this exact DEF 14A filing. What they state is the committee believes the use of stock options and PRSUs aligns interests of the NEOs with our stockholders and will motivate NEOs to achieve our business goals and strategies and increase stockholder value. The bulk of our CEO's compensation is in the form of equity awards tied to Discovery stock performance. So there it is, back to the video. You might think that the way the world should be is that the CEOs of the biggest companies should get the biggest salary, but actually this would be really dumb. CEOs are like all other employees and they are paid to do specific jobs. And the more valuable the job is to the shareholder, the higher the CEO gets paid. So shareholders do not need David Zaslav. What they needed was someone to pay back $12 billion in debt in 18 months, or shareholders would risk going bankrupt and losing everything. Replace Zaslav can earn up to $37 million, with shareholders are willing to pay $37 million to not go bankrupt. This is an extract from Warner Bros. Discovery's DEF 14A filings. However, instead of reading this as Zaslav's strategic goals, I'm going to be reading this as what are Warner Bros. Discovery shareholders' strategic goals? We're going to be focusing on overseeing the pathway to delivering at least $3 billion in synergies beginning 2023, which represents 30% of David Zaslav's overall compensation package. And by the way, synergies just means profit or cash that they can use to pay off debt. It meant that whoever was in charge would have to cancel productions in order to drive up profitability. It also helped that it coincided with Hollywood's largest ever strike. But you'd need to be a pretty big cynic in order to believe that the actors' strike, which made Warner Bros. Discovery billions in much needed free cash flow, was something that they prolonged intentionally. Anyway, what Warner Bros. Discovery shareholders did was they set the price for someone to save them from bankruptcy while becoming the most hated person in Hollywood. While Zaslav draws most of the media attention, people ignore the fact that this is exactly what shareholders paid him to do. The price does still seem quite high to me. I do believe that we possibly could have gotten someone to do this cheaper. However, at least we got what we paid for, and had Zaslav not delivered on 100% of his targets, he would have gotten paid less anyway. Now, before the merger between Discovery and Warner Media, you could only vote on the CEO of Discovery every 3 years, but now after the merger, we can vote every year. However, this vote is advisory, so the board of directors can still ignore shareholders. Regardless, if all the shareholders were voting against a pay rise for David Zaslav or voting for a pay reduction, I don't think the board of directors would ignore this. Regardless, every year I plan to vote for David Zaslav's salary to be reduced because I believe the hardest task has now been done. That said, I don't think his contract will renew until 2027, so I'm pretty happy to continue holding the stock and him to continue getting this pay until 2027, but I do expect either him to have had the most incredible performance ever to justify this salary, or his salary to get reduced. By the way, guys, I might be interpreting the DEF 14A filings wrong, and I'm happy for you guys to comment. I am aware that some of these are talking about his salary in 2022 to 2023, and so I'm just a bit new to reading the 14A filings. So if you have more up-to-date information, please make me aware of it in the comment section. If I am right about the 14A filings and David Zaslav's salary renews in 2027, the reason that I think this date is there is because I think that's how long shareholders thought it would take them to get out of bankruptcy risk and to complete the merger with Warner Media. And I think David Zaslav has delivered on these things exceptionally fast. The reason I think this is because the board of directors wrote in the 14A filings, the committee noted the CEO's tremendous leadership during an especially challenging year and specifically considered his actions to finalize and close the Warner Media transaction in a mere 11 months. Shareholders like me are going to benefit greatly from this transaction having been closed incredibly fast. But with that said, the job that we needed done by Zaslav has now been done, and Zaslav has been incredibly well compensated for a job well done. Thanks to Zaslav, we have paid off $12 billion of debt in just 18 months, and now we won't have to pay the next $13 billion for another 5 years. This means compared to the last 18 months, the first 18 months of our merger, we are going to have billions more in free cash flow to invest in new movie projects and invest in getting streaming HBO Plus all across the world, including here in the UK. There's a lot of streaming platforms right now that are massively overpaying for content, and jumping straight to streaming platforms means they lose billions in margin compared to companies like Warner Bros. Discovery when they release films like Dune to cinema and then to streaming platforms. I think it's a big mistake for Amazon and Netflix to have a big emphasis on getting Oscars and Grammys and have mostly overlooked the cinematic experience. Without the cinematic experience, it's really hard to justify big blockbuster movies. What these companies are focusing on is having people on the platform for the longest period of time possible, not having people have the best experiences possible on their platform. Again, one of the biggest reasons I think so many people will go to HBO Plus is because so many people have a shared experience of going to see the Harry Potter movies every year in the cinema, and they're going to want to watch those every year at Christmas. Warner Bros. Discovery need to show that they can be leaders in both cinema and streaming. Of course, there are other things they're going to need to focus on, like launching their new sports streaming service, as well as their emphasis on sports streaming and HBO Plus, not galvanizing their profits from their cable sales. However, I do think that Warner Bros. Discovery are going to have to move those cable customers across to streaming. I know David Zaslav is trying to avoid that question, but to me, it's very clear that that is the direction that he needs to take the company. If he does this, his salary can stay where it is or potentially even grow. But if David Zaslav really wants to be rich, he's got to do this.